So I was just chilling, doing my own thing, maxing and relaxing, if you will, and all of a sudden I get an email. Now, I don't usually get emails, so I was curious. So I checked it out, and someone sent me a link to a game that was being developed. They wanted me to give my thoughts on it and to see if you guys liked it. So I spent a few days feeling it out, and boy, do I have a lot to talk about. So I'm going to be talking to you guys about this new racing game, Patrolhead 2. Before we get into this, guys, 5K subs, wow. I'm just as speechless as the last video. It's crazy. It's really crazy. I wouldn't have never imagined to grow this fast. I won't keep you up though. Let's get into the video. So Patrolhead 2 is obviously the sequel to the original Patrolhead. I tried to play that game, but it just froze on me, so I don't know if that's a bug or if it's just my device in particular. Upon loading up the game, you get sent to the main screen, and the UI is pretty simple. I like that. And let me just state beforehand that this game is still in development, so any criticisms that I have could still be fixed before the official release. I got started off with this blue BMW 1 Series hatchback, or at least the clone of it, and looking around, the graphics of the cars don't seem that bad. There's no need for speed, no limits, but I don't think they need to be. It's been proven that games can be fun even if the graphics aren't up to par. But for a mobile game, these graphics are pretty good. I like the whole glossy styling of it. It just makes it look cool. And the cars look like their licensed counterparts even though they aren't branded as such. We'll get back to the dealership in a bit though, because I want to keep talking about the graphics. So obviously I click career mode since that's the thing to do. And there are a few modes I could play. Time attack, racing, and driving, which is pretty much just parking. And when hopping into the levels, the environment looks okay. It could still be in development though, so I won't harp on that. They're not as good as other mobile games, but again, they don't need to be. The cars aren't glossy like yours is, which isn't necessarily an issue, but it does kind of clash. Again, still could be in development. That could very much be the case. Overall, for a mobile game, they're pretty decent. It could use some work, but it's probably still being worked on. I wish I could play the first Patrolhead to kind of compare them. But yeah, let's move on to the gameplay. The gameplay was actually pretty great. The controls were kind of nice. They work properly, there's multiple options, and you can even look around. The sounds of the cars don't seem too bad either. Now, I haven't bought any other cars yet, which I'll get into in a bit, but for my blue 1 Series, it sounded pretty good. There are some issues though. As soon as you hit level 3, the opponents become incredibly difficult. Like, they're just crazy fast for no reason. It could very much be a bug, but if it isn't, I would look into that. And I know what you guys are gonna say. You're gonna talk about upgrades, and don't worry, I will get into that as well. Even in the parking mode, they made it really difficult to complete the level. And this may be because the game is still being developed, but you can get stuck in certain areas. Overall, the gameplay is fine. Once those issues get fixed, it'll be much better though. This next section is where most of my criticism lies, and this is regarding the currency and how all of that works. The first thing is the cars are weirdly priced. The first car costs 55,000 credits, but the next one costs 22,000, even though they're incredibly similar in terms of specs. Which leads me to the next thing, where all these cars are weirdly spec'd. Assuming they were trying to be realistic, it doesn't make sense that the M4 has 184 horsepower, while the EcoBoost Mustang has 304, in which that one is accurate, but why couldn't you do that with all the other cars? Even the C-Class, that has 156 horsepower, when the slowest C-Class model from 2018 has 241 horsepower, and this car costs 180,000 credits. Now, it's not like you have to be accurate, but if you are, it doesn't make sense to be accurate on some cars and completely inaccurate on others. And pricing them all over the place doesn't really help. I suggest categorizing your cars like many other racing games do, maybe put them in tiers, and then properly spec the cars so they're worth the high price. I hope I'm not coming off as rude, I'm just trying to be honest. Another thing is that some of the cars are modified, which I couldn't really understand. I would much rather customize a stock version of the car, which isn't provided, which leads me to the body kits. There's only one option, which I'd assume goes for the rest of the cars. Body kits are one of those things that people really like to mess around with. There are different types that suit different cars, so having just one pre-made option isn't really great. There should be a lot more creative freedom with the body kit. Also, the small customizations are incredibly expensive. The spoiler shouldn't cost 30,000 credits. It's way too much to ask, especially since you're only getting 2,000 credits per race. I feel like the customization is kind of there, but kind of not. They have some things, but they're missing some others. If you're gonna have customization, then give a lot of options. But don't just give a few and think that's enough. And then you have two types of parts that can only be used by sport and supercars. The sport kind of makes sense, but the supercars don't. Wouldn't supercars be faster than most cars already? I mean, I guess technically, yeah, there are specific parts that you could only put in supercars, but what's the point of that in a mobile game? There's nothing wrong with having rare parts, but do something similar like CSR2 with their Stage 6 upgrades. Your hatchback won't slay supercars, but it'll give you a leg up in your weight class. The upgrades are pretty affordable though, so that's nice. Now, one big thing I really don't get is the gold currency. I don't know if you earn some when you level up, but even if that was the case, there should be more avenues. A lot of mobile games struggle with having a second currency, so maybe having certain events and challenges would help. The worst thing you can do to a second currency is make it incredibly hard to get and to make the things that require it incredibly expensive. There's nothing wrong with having a second currency, but you should make it very accessible to get some. Again, the game isn't released, so this could be stuff they're planning already. Now, what are my overall thoughts on the game? I feel like it tries to do a little bit of everything, which in turn makes all of it mediocre. I really don't understand having a parking mode if you're not a parking game. It could be a little mini game or something, but a full-on dedicated mode feels unnecessary, especially if you're not going to go too deep into it. If you want to, maybe try making like a maze of cars that you have to go through without crashing or something. I don't know, that's just an idea, but if you're going to delve into a mode, just go full-on into it. I think this game needs to focus on being one type of racing game, and then once it's established that, it can branch out into other types, or just make different games with those different forms of racing. Hutch Games did a really good job of that. Rebel Racing, Race Kings, and MMX Racing are all different types of racing. Two of those games don't exist anymore, but you know what I mean. Maybe you could just have Patrol Head Drift, Patrol Head Drag, and Patrol Head Street. Then you could appeal to all different types of racing, instead of cramming it all into one and pouring a little bit into each bucket. I think once the devs figure out what they want the game to be and fix the issues it has, it'll be really great. But it has potential. There's already some good stuff about it. What do you guys think? Your opinions matter just as much. You'll be looking through the comments to see, so be honest. But yeah, it's a pretty cool game and I can't wait to see more from it.